This is going to take a while. I gave myself 24 hours to recreate a video game in Unity from scratch. The game I chose to recreate is one of my childhood favourites, Rod-Land from the Amiga. It's a cute platform fighting game where you play as two fairy sisters called Rit and Tam, fighting levels of enemies and bosses in order to save your mother, who has been captured by a monster. Rod-Land is a game I've wanted to recreate for a while. I even made a video showing how to rip sprites from Amiga games using Rod-Land as an example. Here are the rules. I have to recreate a video game in Unity in under 24 hours. Okay, that's the only rule. Then you'd think the first step in game creation would be setting up a Unity project, but you're wrong. We set up a Trello board first so we can get that sweet dopamine hit every time we complete a task. Okay, let's start the timer and create a new project. First thing I'm going to do is install Unity's Relay, Lobby and Netcode for Game Objects packages. That's right baby, why do things easy when you can implement multiplayer? I'll create a basic main menu to allow for creating and joining lobbies, and this will stay pretty much exactly the same throughout the video, so get used to seeing this screen. Alright, let's get some level creation going. Let's start at the introduction stage, which includes our first enemy, this yellow potato looking fella. Fittingly called Spud. I'll slap on some animations and spend far too long on trying to get him to move backwards and forth across the screen like any good game developer would do. Okay, now he's moving around the screen, let's spawn in our player. That seems relatively important, right? I'll stick these triangles where I want our players to spawn, just to help my simple brain visualize it better. And I'll spend some time slapping away at the keyboard with my fingers crossed, hoping that I write some code that's close enough for IntelliSense to help me out with. IntelliSense being a sort of autocorrect for writing code. Good. Now I've written all the code needed in order to spawn in our players, maybe I should start on creating the player prefabs, so I actually have some players to spawn in. For now that'll just be a sprite with the ability to move from left to right. Now we can move left and right, we need to flip the character when changing directions, and also add the ability of ladder creation. Let's just fine tune the positioning of the ladders a little bit better. That's more like it. Now we should only be able to create one ladder at a time, so I'll check to see if I've already created a ladder, and if I have, I'll delete it. Alright, let's see how this works in multiplayer. Wow, working first time? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, those spuds should be going up and down the ladder, so let's tell them to do that. Oh look, he's going up the ladder. Fuck. Well, at least he can go down ladders. Is he going to make it up this ladder? Nope. Okay, some ladder tweaking later and he's going up and down. Now, after all enemies on a stage are killed, the camera should pan to reveal the next stage. Believe it or not, this actually did work first time. What's next? Animation. Let's just skip ahead of this part. Nobody wants to watch that. Okay, let's take a detour and create a new scene for the cutscene. After the intro scene, a short cutscene plays showing an image of a tower with some text. I'll create a script to type out the text one letter at a time and then load the next slide. If there isn't a next slide, it'll load the next scene. Then I can duplicate this scene, edit the slides to create the cutscene that plays when starting the game, and that'll explain about your mother being kidnapped. I'll create a new scene for Zone 1 and copy and paste the UI elements from the intro scene across. Zone 1 is what I'll refer to as the 10 stages between the tower cutscene and the first boss fight. Now at this point I had already created movement for both the player and enemies, so all I have to do to add new stages are place ladders, flowers and enemy spawners with the correct enemy. Next up on the to-do list was item drops. When killing an enemy, it will drop an item that you can use to kill other enemies. So I added the rockets, flawlessly, and I began to work on the bomb before realising that I was missing the sprites for the explosion animation. Thankfully, someone had uploaded a video on how to rip game sprites from Rod-Land, so with that video as reference, I was able to export a save state, load that into MapTapper, and find my missing sprites. A little touch-up job in Photoshop to remove the background, and it's ready to use. Creating this animation was trivial. It's two sprites that switch between each other for a few seconds before the game object is destroyed. Next, we're moving on to the croc boss. For reference, this is how the boss fight is supposed to go down. There's 6 crocs, 3 on each side of the stage, randomly spawning in little crocs. In order to kill the crocs, you gotta poke them in the nose with your rod. And this is the current state of mine. Something's a bit off, but I just can't put my finger on it. Now while we're on the topic of bugs, here's a few others. When riding a balloon to the top of the screen, your inputs get inverted. It definitely upped the difficulty playing like this, and that wasn't the only issue with balloons. I have no idea what caused this bug. But now that those issues are patched, let's see some gameplay. This is played by myself and my brother, and despite this game being coded by a self-taught hobbyist coder in under 24 hours, the game was actually playable. Not only playable, but enjoyable. Even though we live in 2 different countries, the latency was low enough to actually, play the game. Now, it's far from perfect. There's a lot of content I had to skip due to time constraints, and most of the content included could do with a lot of polishing. The game stops at the croc boss, a mere quarter of the actual game. There's no cutscene to play when getting an extra life, and I only managed to add 2 of the 7 item drops, being the bomb and the rocket. It's also possible to push enemies off screen, which I band-aid fixed by killing the enemy if this happens. But despite all of that, in 24 hours of dev time, I managed to recreate something that was playable. So, from myself, Rit and Tam, thanks for watching. If you'd like to play this for any reason, the download page will be in the description. I did try to host the game on itch.io, but I got this error. And I'm not the only one that searched for a solution for this, but if anyone watching knows how to fix it, please let me know and I'll happily host it.
you